Hi everybody, Gabby Facts here. Just wanted to let you guys know a couple of things about packing. I know a lot of you guys are worried about Babes Ride Out and how to pack for Babes Ride Out. So I'm just going to try to give you a really quick, brief overview so that most of you can do this. Now, as you can see, I finally got a luggage rack with a sissy bar for the Indian. But for any bike, a sissy bar is probably a good idea, especially when you're going to go on a long trip. It's not really necessary if you have saddlebags or if you are savvy in how to lash everything down so that it's even. So I'm just going to say that first of all. First thing you want to do is make sure that your load is even. So whatever you have in your left side saddlebag, you need to have the same weight or about that in the right side saddlebag. So you want to make sure that your load is even. Same thing if you have like a duffel bag that's across the back of your bike, make sure that it's evenly weighted on both sides, all right? In this particular situation, now what I did is I don't have my regular pack for actually going across country. Now I just got off of a 5,000 mile trip across country, and of course I had everything. I mean, I make sure I have the kitchen sink. So I make sure that I've got my sleeping bag, my mattress, my fire starters, which we can't start any fires now, so just bring like a small lantern, generally about that big. Try to make sure that everything is compact. I actually carry a shovel, which is a very small compact shovel that's got a pick on the backside and a saw, so that it's multi-purpose, and it also has a little axe on it. So I would suggest going to the Army surplus store and picking up something like that. Generally you can find them when they're about like this long, maybe about that wide and about that thick. They're not really that heavy, but they're great, especially if your bike digs into a hole. If you're on a back road or something like that, you can easily dig yourself out. But the best ones are the ones that fold down into a small pack. Okay, so you've got your shovel, you've got your axe, you've got your pick, and you have a saw, all on the same thing. And my particular one actually has a compass on it. That's another thing. I never leave home without a compass, because you never know when you're going to be in an area where you cannot get a signal. And that happens quite often if you're on back roads. I tend to be on nothing but back roads where no one travels. So sometimes I'm 163 to 165 miles between gas stops. So I suggest if you're going to do something like that, carry some gasoline, like just a gallon worth of gas, because a gallon's worth of gas will get you that extra 20 miles if that's necessary. And 20 miles is a long way to push your bike, so it's worth carrying it. The other thing that I do, like I said, I don't have my regular pack because I usually have a dry bag, which I suggest everyone to carry, because the last thing you want is your sleeping bag and all your clothes to get wet. So whatever you carry your stuff in, make sure it's a big dry bag. Sometimes they make a big duffel that's like a big dry bag. Kuryakyn makes a lot of great dry bags, so I suggest check into Kuryakyn. You can also go to Cycle Gear, they have certain dry bags, or you can go to REI and pick just a regular duffel bag dry bag if you just want to go simple. And if you don't have saddlebags, I'd say that's probably the best way to go. And if you don't have a sissy bar, it's probably the best way to go. Just get a big duffel that'll, pack down your warm weather gear, your cold weather gear, your rainy weather gear, depending on how far you're going, whatever else you might need, like if you're going to snack, medication, don't forget your medication. I personally always carry a buck knife. People think, oh, is that for protection? Well, it's a tool. And yeah, it can be used as protection, and I don't leave home without one. So I always have a buck knife of some sort, and they call this a fixed blade, so that you have a tool if needed. It's a nice stout blade, so I can cut, I can hammer with it if necessary, and I can protect myself if I have to. But it's a good stout blade. You don't want something that's over 6 inches as far as the blade is concerned, because that could be an issue. It could be a felony if it's over 6 inches. Generally, they won't stop females if you've got a knife on your hip, but I just want to keep you safe. So make sure that the blade that you have on it is under 6 inches. The rest of the knife can be longer, like the handle can be longer, but the blade should be about 6 inches. So as far as your camping gear, like I said, you want a nice tent. I usually get like a 2-man tent, only because I like to be able to have enough room to bring my gear inside with me if in the event it's raining. And even if it's not raining, if you want to keep your gear safe and want to keep it close to you, sometimes I like to lean my back up against it. Sometimes I like to lean up against it like a chair if I'm in my tent. But a 2-man tent is really nice. As far as price is concerned, that's one of those things. If you're going to do an overnight and then you're not going to do another one until next year, then buy yourself a $40 tent. If you're like me and you're going to be out on the road a lot, I spent about $400 on my tent, only because I'm in cold weather, I'm in hot weather, I'm in windy weather. You never know what kind of weather you're going to be in, but the last thing you want is to be wet. So you don't want that. So you want your like I said, your footprint, which is the it's like a tarp or a small, little small light tarp that you put down before you put your tent down. I always suggest that because you never know if there's thistles or rocks or glass or anything that might cut the floor of your tent. You don't want to get that cut, so you want to put your footprint down. Then you want to put your tent on top of it. Some people don't stake their tents down. Make sure you stake your tent down, people, because if there's any kind of a wind at all, your tent is going to go flying. Some people are like, oh, well, I don't need to stake your tent down. Okay, you'll never regret that. And always, when you're coming in and out of your tent, always close your screens. Don't leave your screens open. If you leave your screens open, you're going to go to bed at night and you're probably going to get bitten up by spiders and mosquitoes all night long. You don't want any of those critters in your tent. A snake could crawl into your tent, a scorpion can crawl in your tent, and that's beside the little critters that are going to bite you and make you itchy. So make sure that you always close down your screens on your tent. So back to your footprint, then you want to put your tent up, you want to stake it down. Put the rain bonnet on if you think there might be rain. If you don't think there might be rain and you're not worried about privacy, leave it off because you're going to get a lot more aeration. You're not going to get as much aeration if you put your rain bonnet on, but you'll get more privacy. So depending on where you are, like if you're with a bunch of women, nobody really cares. We all have the same thing. So I leave my bonnet off only because I like to look at the stars. But if I'm going to be in a campground where there's a lot of people where I'm going to need my privacy, if I'm changing my clothes or cleaning up or whatever, then I'll put my rain bonnet on because it allows me more privacy with my tent. So you have a mattress. Now I also have a mattress that folds down to about that size. Now you can get a bigger mattress. I do have a big mattress that I carry for, like, say, babes, because I'm not going that far and I don't have to carry all that stuff that far. And it's big. It rolls down to about a roll about that big around. It's about that wide, but boy, is it comfortable. Then I have the one that I travel with, which is only about that thick, but it's a baffled one. Baffles means it's got a bunch of like quilts in it. And the more quilts you have, the more comfortable your body is going to be. I suggest you spend a lot of money on that only because you're going to want to be comfortable. You're not going to want to deal with, okay, I guess I'm okay. You're not going to want to have to deal with your hips hitting the ground or your backbone hitting the ground or your shoulders hitting the ground if you're on your side. You're going to want to be nice and comfortable with that. So make sure that you get an air mattress that you'll probably have to blow up. You can get an inflatable one, but it's bigger to pack and more to carry. You can get a bigger one like what I'm probably going to bring to babes, but it's going to be a real thick, fat one. I wouldn't want to travel across country with that because it's just a lot. Okay, so remember your dry bag. You got your tent, stake it down, close your flaps. Make sure you put a footprint down because you don't want to ruin your floor. Use your rain bonnet if you want privacy. So that's a little bit of review there. Now, everything that I need is in one pack as far as my house is concerned. Okay, let's cut it.
Okay, so